So welcome everybody. We're very, very excited and happy that so many of you actually dialed in to be with us for our very first future talk tonight. We have a great online panel ahead of us with three great panelists. And my name is Anne Tischer. I'm the founder and chairwoman of Frauen in Führung. Frauen in Führung is an initiative that helps to bring more women into leadership in the German real estate industry. And we actually just founded last year, and I will be hosting this online panel tonight with my lovely co-host, Annetta. Hi, there she is.
Hi. Right, so there we go. Welcome everybody. Great to have so many of you from our communities as well as from the real estate industry here. This is our 13th session of Women Who Inspire Rhein Main with a little bit of a different setup here, meaning this is our very first online and very first industry focused event. I will be one of your hosts today. My name is Annetta. I'm partner of Women Who Inspire Rhein Main. This initiative is a platform featuring accomplished female speakers to inspire and empower the audience through their success stories and their personal achievements. The goal is here to strengthen and create professional relationships within the region. Then I'm joined also by one of our supporters, Ulf, his name is. He will be in the background helping us a little bit with this technical and Q&A today. So you might see his name. So there are a lot of firsts tonight, right, Anne?
Right, yeah, a lot of first times tonight. We hope that all of the technical stuff will work out well, and yeah, we're keeping our fingers crossed.
Indeed. So we have an agenda for today. This session is pretty short. It's about an hour. I've just divided it into three things that we will accomplish today. We are going to start off with an introduction rounds of our three visionary thought leaders here who joined tonight. And then part two is going to be the panel discussion, approximately 40 minutes, where we are going to be discussing not only the challenges in or what this crisis holds actually, but also the chances for innovation, diversity, and cultural change in the German real estate industry. And then part three is going to be the Q&A session, which is going to take approximately 10 to 15 minutes. Please feel free to comment and ask anytime during the panel discussion in the chat, and we'll get back to these questions in the Q&A session. So why have we chosen this topic actually, right?
Right. Yeah, we thought about what topic we should actually pick for the very first future talk. And that was the time when actually Corona started. And first, as probably most of you, we thought about the problems that Corona would bring and about the challenges and about all of this uncertainty. Will we lose clients, jobs, projects, etc.? But then there also was this understanding that any crisis holds that momentum for change, and actually to think about, okay, if the old solutions that we all know, if they don't work anymore, maybe we need to stop and pause for a while and think about what we can do differently to make it work again. So, and this is why we wanted to take a positive take tonight on the Corona crisis, and invited three great panelists who are all experts in their own fields and who can bring a lot of experience and expertise to the discussion tonight. And so I'm very, very happy to be able to introduce to you our three panelists, and that is Christine Hager. Welcome, Christine. Let's start with you and your introduction. You are, I mean, there are only a few women, I guess, who know the retail real estate industry as well as you do. You have more than 20 years of experience in the retail industry. You are the president of the German Council of Shopping Places. Hi, it's a nice wave there. Yeah, and in your role as the president of the German Council of Shopping Places, you actually are in contact with all of your 750 members of the German Council of Shopping Centers. And they are both. They are retail owners, but they are also retail tenants. And you actually managed to find a code of conduct with all of your members agreeing on rental reduction payments, rental stops, etc., and found this great compromise. And we're going to talk about this later because this is a very, very interesting thing you did. And apart from being president of the German Council of Shopping Places, you are also the managing director of Redos. Redos Group is an investor and manager in retail properties in Germany, like shopping centers, supermarkets, do-it-yourself stores, right? So you bring in a huge amount of retail real estate experience. Yeah. Thank you for being our panelist.
All right.
Do you want to maybe introduce Markus to us?
Ja, na klar. Dr. Markus Wiedenmann. Hi, Markus. He's a true entrepreneur, innovator, networker, and investor. He is someone who's not only feels inspired when he sees a great idea, but when the moment is right, he takes that idea, brings the right people together, and turns it into a successful business. He left his job as managing director at a global real estate firm, Tishman Speyer, back in 2010, and he co-founded a company called Art Invest Real Estate Management. Today, this former startup is one of the largest developers in Germany when it comes to office buildings and hotels, among other things. His team has grown to over 200 people working in offices in several countries in the EU. And with a venture capital firm, Bridgestone Capital, which he co-founded by Art Invest in 2017, he looks for innovative digital real estate business models to invest in. We are going to be asking him how he does it, what's the best idea to invest in these days. And also, for instance, they invested in design offices, data center developer Mindcubes, technology firm Smart Engine, micro living and service apartments developer iLife, among other things. So welcome on board, Markus. That's a long, long introduction, isn't it?
Thank you, Annette. Well researched. Thank you.
Yeah, right. Right. Let's move forward with our third speaker tonight, right, Anna?
Yeah, and then we have Bianca. I'm very excited that Bianca is here tonight because Bianca Praetorius does not come from within the real estate industry. She is an expert in the whole world of techs, startups, digitization. She is also a political activist. She's an author. She has her own podcast. She is co-founder of 2 political parties. And she even, I think you even ran a campaign for a new Green Deal in Europe. So you're a busy woman. And what I really find interesting for you being panelists with us tonight is that you really have this perspective from the outside, right? I think you also moderated the Reboot conference at the beginning of this year, this huge retail conference. And I think you got your own impression on the retail real estate industry in it and how they stand in terms of digitization and how innovative they are.
It was so much fun, such an honor to do that. So that was my big introduction to the older industry of that part.
Yeah.
And you are very well known with podcasting, so the best of both. Yeah.
So I would say let's get this started, this online panel. And actually my very first question would go out to you, Markus. And it's just very easy question. I mean, these past 4 to 5, I think 5 weeks now, it's been since the crisis really hit us. This month has been unlike any one of us thought it would be. So tell me, what's been your past 5 weeks like? I mean, you're running this company with 200 people. You have offices all over Germany and also in Vienna, in London. How did you manage to keep the business going?
Well, Anna, the past 4 weeks have been very intense, I must say. The funny thing is, my wife works at an automotive company, and they've closed down the factory, and so she's at home in what you call Kurzarbeit, and all of her friends, they all have nothing to do. And I work from early in the morning until late at night. And she asked me last week, what do you actually do? I mean, there's nothing to do in her view. And I had to tell her that there was, or there still is, huge amount of work for us to do. Our business doesn't stop. Our construction sites don't stop. Our buildings haven't gone anywhere. So it's been hugely intense. And when we started the year, we thought we were well positioned. Our construction is underway. They were leased or sold or financed, and some of the assets that we hold long term are in a good spot. But then somehow the whole world changed, and everything that we took for granted was not given anymore. I mean, it starts with, I don't know, over 100 tenants approaching us about not paying the rent anymore. It continues with banks saying, you know what, the term sheet we put out to you, it's for hotel property. We aren't really sure about whether we want to fund that still. And it doesn't continue, with tenants looking whether you would run into a long stop date on a development and they can rescind from a lease. So, and the way we are set up, and Aneta introduced it a little bit, we do development, but also long-term investment. We do the asset classes office, retail, hotel, and data centers. But we are also active on the operating side. As Aneta introduced, we have our own hotel chain with 17 hotels that we operate. We have the largest co-working platform in Germany with design offices. We have, through iLive, about 3,000 apartments up and running. And we have a data center which we operate. And so, you get all this spectrum from the real estate, the development, all the asset classes, and then all the perspective from the owner and the operator. And it's been very, very intense, and just getting a hold of it and trying to make sense of what's happening and how long it will take, plus changing the organization. So it was an interesting 4 weeks.
So how did you set up your team then? I mean, there were so many challenges all of a sudden knocking on your door. How did you organize not only yourself, but your entire team to keep on track of everything?
Yeah. I mean, that was the part that was really fun, I must admit. So at the beginning of the year, we've introduced a lot of new software things into the company. So in 2019, we said we want to digitalize. So we introduced Architrave for all our documents. We introduced Teams to collaborate. We introduced a new intranet for the social, gathering within the company. And a few other things. And, in February, people were telling me, and we all launched this in January. So January 1st, we launched all of this and said, this is our new setup. We all have to get used to it, basically all at the same time. And in February, everybody was saying, oh gosh, all this new software and all this bullshit. But in early March, we very soon decided we have to split teams. We introduced home office to everybody that wants to take it, but we left the offices open because all our construction sites are running, and we can't ask the construction workers to come to work every day, and we're sitting at home. So we didn't feel that was right. But we said everybody that doesn't feel safe, that they can stay at home. And it turns out we have an occupancy across all our offices, I would say, of about 30%. But with the new software and everything, that was really smooth, and it went much, much better than I actually expected.
So you mentioned that I think it was like 100 of your tenants saying pretty much within no time that they had to stop paying their rent. So how did you talk to them? How did you find a compromise? I mean,
Yeah. I mean, I think what we decided is early on, we just, for the moment, we just react. So we show solidarity with every tenant that calls us, because they're not doing it for fun. Whether it's a hotel, whether it's a retail, whether it's gastronomy, they all have an issue. So we told everybody, be kind, show solidarity, and let them know that we're not enforcing the rights that you have as a landlord. right? I don't know, pull the rental security or all that. We don't want to do that. And then so we went, and then we're going to look very individually. So we don't have a concept for everybody. So because it's different whether, the one that went for the past, Adidas, doesn't pay rent, or whether it's somebody, somebody makes the shop for a living. It's very different, right? So and that goes through all asset classes and through all operators. So we are that's what we're doing now, is we speak to everyone. We try to understand how their business is affected, what the prospect is of getting back to normal, when that will be, whether they can get credit from KfW and all of these things. And for now, we just tell them, you don't have to pay any rent, and we'll find an agreement. And that agreement can be, we waive the rent, or we how do you say, Stunden, we give them credit basically for them to pay back, or maybe we agree new lease, right? Everything is possible, and it's very individual.
Yeah.
We don't want to force anybody in a very painful situation. We're not going to do that. But we, as we have to also see on the financial side that we don't give things away. So we have to find a balance.
So my question would be, in that moment when tenants were approaching you saying they were having problems paying the rents, did you have at any point the feeling that some of them might take advantage of that situation? Or did you?
Yeah, there were tenants where we know the business is still running. For example, we own a co-working operator ourselves. And we know how much of the income is affected by Corona. It's not 100%. The offices are still open. They still get rent from their tenants. And when they are telling us they're not going to pay any rent, although the business is open, the business center is packed with people, that's something I cannot understand. If there's a hotel closed, I can totally understand it. If gastronomy is closed, I can totally understand it. And so but we look at everything individually, and then we decide how we react. Yeah, and we want to be solidarity. How do you say solidarity? We want to show solidarity. But not
Yeah, because this is really interesting now to ask Christine about this, because Christine, as I mentioned before, with her association, the German Council of Shopping Places, she worked on having a guideline for people like you, being the owners, or the landlords, so to say, for retail tenants and the tenants, so that both of them agree on a guideline on rental payment reductions and what the criteria are, whether you get them or not. So Christina, can you tell us a little how you came up with the idea of the code of conduct, and when it started, and how you managed all of the 750 members to agree on that? That's a lot.
Yes, it is a lot. Not everyone has agreed personally, but in the end, we find a solution to produce this kind of code of conduct. So in the end, as readers, we are really facing the same problems as Markus said. I think the only difference is that we are only investing in retail. So we are really much affected too on that same side. And we approach, as Markus just said, there's no like one size fits all. So every agreement has to be made in the end individually, of course. So having this in mind, so when the Corona crisis started, from my point of view, it was mid of February when it came really close to us. We directly kind of initialized a Corona task force at the German Council, where people came together sharing their information they have and the problems and the challenges and also maybe the opportunities they have, regardless of, for example, company size or number of assets under management. So this was very helpful at the very beginning, just to share information, to tell everyone, well, we are all sitting in the same boat, of course, even if we've got different parties, different stakeholders joining this call, for example. So at the end, we realized really, really quickly that it would be helpful to have a kind of, to unite in a call for a retail leasing industry code of conduct, because in the end, we were very clear, or everyone was clear, that no one or not any party is only in fail of that they have created the situation. So we are all sitting in the same boat. So therefore, these kind of code of conduct can now be seen as a kind of, let me call it guideline to define the rules between landlords and tenants in the real estate industry working here for the period of the coronavirus, but also for the hopefully soon coming reopening phase, of course, because we have to be prepared now what is happening. And as we all know from yesterday, there are, in every announcement, there are questions left open. For example, the yesterday's, what about the 800 square meters, and what about Söder saying, well, shopping malls are closed? I mean, in fact, they aren't closed at the moment. They are open, of course, within the shopping center. There are, for example, only 7 units open, and the rest 150 are closed. So therefore, from the owner's side, it's a very difficult situation, because we also have running costs, of course. We've got to open the center, we've got to have security, we have to hygienic and everything around that. So therefore, it was very helpful, but it was not easy, because also retailers took part in our conference calls. And of course, everyone had their own perspective for the first moment. So in the end, the code of conduct is kind of recommendation for action to which both parties can commit themselves. Not in general, in individual base, of course, then, but it's a recommendation at the end. So the code of conduct really aims to establish a fair and cooperative dealing on an equal footing in order to ensure a balanced burden sharing, let me call it like this, because also the landlords are facing some difficulties, of course, at the moment. It's not only the tenant. And that's what we did very quickly. And now everyone can agree on. And we created this social media initiative, for example, where you can say, well, I'm part of this community. So therefore, that's what we are doing at the moment there.
Two questions on that. First question, getting back to Markus here. Markus, I think the code of conduct issued last week, it was, I think, right? So that was 2 months of work for you. Markus, would that code of conduct have helped you in your talks with your tenants if you had it before? Do you have it now? Is it?
Well, I'm just opening it. I didn't know it was out there, so I'm just.
You're not a member of the German Council, so therefore maybe you missed that.
Yeah, I think this is hugely helpful, because we will have to agree on something. I mean, everybody has to chip in something, but we felt we have to react where there's a real need now. Basically, we don't have to panic, and we don't have to agree with the tenants this month even. We let them know, don't worry about it. You know, we'll find a solution, whatever that is. And we don't know how long the situation is going to last, right? Maybe we won't, at the end, maybe we only talk about 1 month, maybe we talk about 3 months. And it's very, so, and you know, somebody can pay, somebody cannot pay. So yeah, but I'm definitely going to look at this code of conduct. It's the first thing I hear, and I think this is great, and maybe this is awesome. I've opened it up here. I'll read it afterwards.
Right. So when Christine first, I think we actually had a call with her and with her colleague Ingmar Behrens, who's managing director of the German Council of Shopping Places. And when they told me about this code of conduct, I found it really interesting also for our online panel tonight, because we're talking tonight about chances for change, for positive change. And one thing that struck me, as having been in the real estate industry for a long time as well, I guess you could say, is that very often if you have opposing parties with different interests, right, whether it's like we had this debate about nationalizing residential real estate, the Enteignungsdebatte, right? So we had this campaign. Then we had the debate about the Mietendeckel, the gap basically on the rents for residential apartments. And you'd always have, on the one hand, you have a public with an opinion and a certain mistrust and negative experiences. And then you have the real estate industry who tends to either belittle it or criticize it. So there is not a lot, that's my personal opinion and how I have seen it. It always felt like there wasn't really this willingness to take each other perspectives and to sit down at one table and really listen to each other and really finding a compromise. And this is why I love that code of conduct, because this stands for a value that we actually need in the real estate industry.
Yeah, I think as you just said, Anna, I think the situation gives us also kind of opportunity to clear up our views. I mean, as you say, to take different perspective in the end, because in the end, regarding retail, in fact, but also all the other asset classes, we are all sitting in the same boat. So therefore, we have to find a solution together. And I think this is quite common that everyone knows that only can do it together in the end. So therefore, hopefully, these values will be much more appreciated right now. So yes, that's why we did that.
Experience. Yeah. I guess it's really a learning experiences for all of us, for the companies, like for all of the individuals, in terms of the values that we either emphasize or not emphasize. So I need to ask you one more question, and about we all learned about that public shitstorm that Adidas actually got, along with, I think it was also Deichmann and H&M, when they actually, they referred to this quickly passed law that retail tenants could postpone their rents as an effect of the Corona crisis. And then, the public was pretty outraged that a company like Adidas, who had made good profits in the past, was one of the first to try to benefit from this law. What's your take on this? I mean, because you represent, again, both the landlords, the owners of retail space, and the tenants. What's your opinion about this?
Yeah, I think, first of all, I have to say, I think the initial idea behind this law was to help smaller and mid-sized businesses to overcome the crisis in the end and to protect them against running short of cash, of course. So on the one hand, it was certainly created, or not created, for large companies and chains, but on the other hand, the crisis does not even leave bigger enterprises unaffected. So therefore, it seems to be a little bit of reasonable that those companies also consider potential measures to safeguard their business and their financial stability, of course. Cutting off the rental payments, I think, was certainly a quick win, which was highly welcome, particularly as it took some time, from my point of view, to implement other measures like low interest loans from the German government-owned development bank, like KfW, for example, or other governmental banks. So all in one, I guess, it was more an issue of unfortunate communication that rather than a greedy or a predatory act. So as we all know, I think there was some politician who burned up his Adidas t-shirt very, very prominently, but I think this wasn't that what Adidas, of course, tries to achieve, and therefore it was a very, very unfortunate situation to everyone. And as we all know, Adidas now is, or they do the Rückwärtsgang. they push back, yes, and try to clear it up, the situation. And as far as I know, I mean, we haven't got Adidas in our centers, but I think they are paying rent at the moment. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. But it just shows again how important it is for companies to really always know what the values are that they're standing for. And whenever there is a situation where the public could get it wrong, even it might not have been like 100% Adidas fault, they need to think about how it is seen by the public, and whether it fits to their values or not. So that's, like, I guess, important to all companies, the real estate companies as well, and to the retail companies, of course, as well. So another learning we have tonight. So so Annetta, maybe you want to ask Bianca into the discussion as well.
Yeah. So another topic on which I believe real estate companies can learn about has to do with innovation. So now the real estate industry is often being referred to as a sleeping giant when it comes to innovation and digitization. And Bianca, you're a startup pitch coach and have worked with so many startups in the tech industry. And you say that the biggest driver for innovation is actually diversity. So what makes you think that?
Well, it's another big secret that it is like that. So often the word innovation has become such a buzzword that people are like, how does it actually get innovated? And if you look at places like Silicon Valley, where they have this track record of being innovative, it's a very diverse background. So when we think about diversity, it's often like, oh, more women, but it actually refers to like people from different backgrounds, actually different industries, older, younger, and also men and women all together. So what that makes it makes it more uncomfortable, because if you're producing the same as the same, so there's this famous thing saying about German diversity that there is more guys called Thomas in the boards of these companies in this country than there are women, which is such a sad thing. And so, of course, a Thomas feels comfortable with a Thomas, feels comfortable with a Thomas, and then you can't expect anything actually out of the box happening. So it's just a logical conclusion of, if you keep it too much of the same, it's much harder to come up with new ideas. So embracing the chaos that diversity brings on the table is the quickest recipe to get something new out of the table.
Right. Right. Christina, Markus, do you agree that diversity helps innovation? And if diversity is key, how can real estate companies become more diverse?
I think you are on mute, Christina.
Yeah, you can start, Markus.
I just asked you if you wanted to have the first, but okay, I can also give my first answer. I mean, as we all know, or it is, I think, proved that these, what's it called in English, co-educational teams are much more successful. So in the end, at Redos and also in the German Council of Shopping Center, we don't have any problem regarding men and women. So it's nearly equal. So in my personal company here, it's Redos Invest Management, we are 2 women managing the company. So therefore we haven't got any issue on that. But yes, in the end, I think, yeah, it helps us all, because I think men and women sometimes do take different views on issues. So as it's what is the stomach feeling, which is most of all done to the women, of course, that it is a little bit better. But we run the company very well with a balanced team, also in the managing direct level. So therefore, yes, we agree on that.
Great. Yeah, I can also add that we've, unlike for the real estate industry, we actually have a 51% female, how do you say, quote. So 51% of our employees are female, but also we are generally young. So I think our average age is like 35ish or so, but we do have quite a few, what we call the, how do you call the silver, the gorillas with
silver surfer.
Because and the mixture there is also great. It's not only men and women, but it's also very experienced people and very young people. The young people are great with technology, doing the Excel and the PowerPoint and all this stuff. And the experienced one that have seen multiple things, situations, that have a broad network and have a different judgment. And you know, the mixture in every way is super important. And so, you know, yeah, I think, you know, and I must say, especially on the project level, we have a lot of women, and it is, even on the construction side, I think we actually have more women in our construction team than we have men, which is actually surprising. But, you know, and honestly, I mean, I can say that because there are only women here, usually they do better work. I must honestly admit. They're more focused on what they do, and they do it in a better and more precise way. than men do it. They're often distracted by something else that's important to them, and not so, you know what I mean.
Yes.
So,
Sorry.
no, you know, if I have something important to get done, and you know, it's usually well kept with, you know, female, because I know they're going to do it very precisely, and you know, so.
So, and normally they are mainly very well organized, because if they do have to manage also, for example, the family or the elder person, I don't know. So therefore, yes, they are really, really clear on what they have to do at the same day. So, and also in a limited time. So therefore, yes, I agree.
Yeah, I mean, when I look at my wife, I mean, we have 4 kids, and she still works, and you know, I couldn't do it. I mean, if I have to chip in for her, I'm just totally lost. You know, and then she works and she gets all this stuff done with the kids and the schools and the hobbies and the music and everything. It's super, super well organized, you know. And when I have sometimes to take care of the kids for one day, I'm totally lost, because I have all this list, and it's every minute I have to do something else. I have to go shopping or bring them to the music and do this and that. And she also starts her work, you know, so.
Right,
Yeah.
right. I'd like to go back to Bianca a bit. You have helped 1,500, more than 1,500 startups to present their ideas and find people, companies who invest in these ideas. So actually, we are kind of at the beginning of an economical crisis. Isn't that completely crazy to start a business now?
It might feel that way, that you're like, oh my God, this is the most risky phase. But I would say the opposite is the case, because, so yes, money will not be flowing around, but that hasn't been the case for startups anyway. So it was always risky to start a business. But Corona, and especially after this crisis, after Corona crisis ends, which will be at some point, it's completely rearranging the cards. So there's problems suddenly out there that nobody have even thought of. And so in general, when you have a startup and you don't solve somebody's problem who's also willing to pay to get that problem fixed, you don't have a business anyway. So I would say there's almost a blue ocean full of problems that you could solve and then run a business. So if you played with the idea of like, maybe I want to start a business, look at all the mess out there and solve it for those people. And because blue ocean, you'll be the first. Nobody has foreseen that.
Right. Thanks for the advice. What are the best business ideas to start a business within these next months? What do you think?
I mean, that's that's a hard question. I have a few ideas that I'm like, okay, these are the just random ideas that came up. Like, for example, the one industry that really has an issue, only if we reopen after the next weeks, the event industry, the concert industry, every event, they won't be able to have these massive events anymore. So anybody who's coming up with an event organization that, for example, imagine you want to run a festival. You can't do that for the next 1.5 years, most likely, until we have the vaccine. And so if you do a solution that you can buy a GPS tracking, that basically you sell tickets to a concert of people that wearing headphones, and they have to come to a GPS location that they only can get the music in that location. You could still sell tickets because they're linked to this GPS location, and you can actually then be sure that people won't go together. So for example, the music could stop when you lose the GPS location. So this industry is open for innovation, and they're craving, because otherwise they will die. Another idea is Zoom calls. I mean, everybody is now in Zoom calls, and the industry that I'm around in new work, they're super happy that finally people are getting digital. But all of us know it can be such a pain to be in a Zoom call, because people are like, oh, can you hear me? Oh no, there's a sound. I don't know, awkward pauses. So I think there's a need of moderators in Zoom calls. So it's almost like a new tiny job that you could be precision task management within a call, because otherwise they become very boring and very like unprecise, which is the thing that nobody enjoys. So moderators in Zoom calls, and two other just ideas that also I've seen already happening. So there were hotels in Berlin closing down, and they started to re-rent their hotel rooms to basically, like Markus said, businesses, people who are stuck in home office, they can't go to their co-working spaces. If they're at home and they have kids, it's impossible to be effective there. So this hotel started to rent out basically little cubes of their normally sleeping rooms, and you can turn it into an office. So you still would make a revenue. And so plenty of these ideas. Travel industry will crash down. So now's the time for virtual reality cinemas, car cinemas. All these things have not been urgent the past years, and now they are. And my last idea I'm going to throw in is gloves. So in the 1920s, like 100 years ago, I don't know if you ever look at those old pictures, people would always wear gloves just because it was chic, but also because the cities were kind of dusty and dirty. I think after the crisis, this scar of I don't want to touch anything will stay. So imagine like a really light summer glove that would be able to work on a smartphone. People would buy that. And beforehand, there would no reason to wear gloves in the summer. So this doesn't exist yet. All these ideas up for grabs. But
yeah, these are very specific ideas indeed.
Yeah.
Markus, you're already invested in so many different companies with Art Invest. Is there an area where you would find it interesting to invest in right now with Bitstone Capital? Or what investment idea would you attract your attention right away these days?
Yeah, well, I think for startups and everything that has to do with digitalize the real estate industry, I think it's even more important than it was ever before. So we continue to do investment. We just agreed today to do an investment in a company that helps in that process. But it's become, and the good thing is we've fortunately we finished our fundraising for our second fund in February, and we raised about 30 million to be able to invest in startups in the real estate and construction technology in Germany, and makes us one of the, I guess, largest whatever VCs in that space. And so we're ready to go. And the fortunate thing is, you can say that you can like that or not, is that there aren't many around, and liquidity is gone. So the deals that we are seeing are becoming more realistic, and the how do you say, the Bewertung, the values which people are quoting for an idea, they're coming down a bit. But it is a struggle because all of the startups, they're all based on growth, and all our existing startups are now scrambling for cash, because no new business is difficult right now. So on the one side, we keep capitalizing the investments we've made. We've made about 15 investments in startups, but we're also looking for new investments. And I think things have become more important than ever. I think the whole virtual visit thing is becoming even more important, right, in these days. These things, things that let you do business without being actually there. These are things that I think are really interesting right now.
Yeah, indeed. Anne,
I would suggest, Annette, if that's fine with you, I would suggest actually to open the Q&A session now. I do have one question that I really want to use the chance now to ask it, because otherwise we're not going to get to it. And my question would, because I saw that there were a lot of questions in the chat already, so we're going to get to these just in a minute. But my question to all of the three of you would be, what do you think are the biggest learnings for the real estate industry they can actually do now to be better, more innovative, more having richer values in the future? Any ideas about that? Christine, maybe? What do you think?
As we already said, I think in the end, the real estate industry has now finally woken up, and digitalization is really taken more seriously. So we were forced to do it, and everyone is doing it. And I think this will also have an impact on future, even in the post-corona phase. For example, not traveling around all the time, do some Microsoft Team meetings or Zoom or anything around that. I think this is very, very helpful to all of us. And now we get used to it. and it works. To be honest, as an asset manager, it works. If you've got the software and everything is implemented, really, really good. So regarding the retail real estate industry, it's a bit more special because in the end, but it has also been there before Corona, from my point of view, it's not a question of being online or offline. It's more a question of being in line with consumer demands and behavior. And therefore, at the moment, people are really forced to put that together. And also the retailers, for example, not only the bigger ones, also the smaller ones are really forced to become digital, also in store, and also maybe, for example, to use this kind of platforms, even if they don't have their own online channel, and therefore do some sales. So therefore, I think this is the biggest learning, but also a big chance to come more.
And they should do it fast. I mean,
yes.
retailers who have not yet come to develop a digital strategy to sell their products, they're pretty late.
Yes,
right? I mean,
that's it. So now they're forced to do it in the end. So therefore, yes, we can see it as not only a chance, also an opportunity, and they have to be very fast. And everyone is at the moment, also the smaller ones.
Okay. Markus, do you want to share an idea on what the actual learnings for the real estate industry could be going out of this crisis again?
I think, you know, the first learning is nothing is certain, right? Everything that you take for granted can be gone, and no cycle lasts forever. I think that is, so in January, you know, people were still thinking the cycle goes on and on and on, and, you know, making bets in the future. But, you know, as every cycle, this one has come to a very abrupt end. And I think one of the learning is, I think you don't only look at the face. So don't only look at, okay, I rent this hotel to them or rent this space to them and they pay me rent. But I think you have to look at the underlying business and how that is going, because that's what it all comes down to. In this crisis, what happens is the real estate owners, they become part owners of the hotel, of the retail, of whatever it is, because the tenant will only pay what they're able to pay. And I think coming out of the crisis, what we will see is, for example, in retail, I would predict that a lot of retailers will say, I'm not paying rent anymore, I pay a turnover. So for every t-shirt I sell, you know, the guy who's delivered me the t-shirts gets something and you get something for your rent. So you, as a real estate owner, you become, how do you say, ein Mitunternehmer. You become an entrepreneur of your tenants. I think that's what's going to happen. And so I think that's a learning. Nothing is for granted, and don't take the face value. Look at the business behind and how that is going. So, you know, I don't know what you think, Christina, but I think the turnover thing in retail is going to be,
Yes,
right?
I'm actually thinking about talking to the banks about financing on that basis. Yeah. So therefore, yes, will be a challenge, of course.
Well,
not only for valuation.
100 t-shirts, and out of every t-shirt I get €2,
yeah,
and that makes €200 in rent for the t-shirts.
Yeah.
Bianca, you have had your moment of getting to know the real estate industry in January. So do you have any ideas what the industry could learn in this crisis going forward?
That's of course like a big thing to say because I'm an outside perspective, but what the one thing that was really obvious for me to see is from all the industries that in the last 8 years have been fintech and femtech and health tech, and property tech was one of the latest to show up, which is already an indicator of the pace of how urgent matters are be. And so the last 3 years, I think many of like people in startups and digitalization where they breathe digital products were trying to like show, hey, you should do that. Why don't you do a platform where you can, where your urban neighbors can basically like give a urban alternative to Amazon. And if I look at the mindset that these ideas went on, it's like, that's a good idea. It's inspiring. but the urgency wasn't there because it worked like this. And now it always also almost breaks my heart that I don't see that it didn't happen yet. So that still Amazon is like the big benefit of this crisis. And sadly, the shops and the retail I love in my surrounding, they're probably going to go bankrupt. And so, yeah, the tips, I don't know.
But maybe a good thing about this could actually be that the whole tech and the prop tech scene, which I think both of you, Markus and you, are familiar with, and Christine probably as well, they could actually, they could now create so many ideas for new tools, softwares, to realize that digitization, that need for more digital solutions. So it will be interesting to see what they make with it and what they will come up with. So maybe, but that also needs an exchange of thoughts and perspectives, right? That actually, like people like Markus, who is representing the owner, gets together with someone who's managing real estate, gets together with someone who's actually the user or the tenant in a property to get this really great business idea that a tech company then can do.
Yeah, I can add that Anna, because what we found is most young people that want to start a startup and they've chosen real estate as their field of entrepreneurship, they deal with things that they know from their daily life. And since they're usually young, they usually go into stuff like, I don't know, renting out apartments or doing stuff on the B2C level. So, the problems that they've seen, but it's more difficult on the commercial property scene to develop startups that work there, because for that you need to have been in the commercial scene to understand the problems that you cannot see when you're young and just, out of university trying to do a startup. So what you need to do is to develop an understanding of the real problems that the industry has, and then find a team that's willing to take that on. So we did something with the University of Cologne. They have sort of a professor for entrepreneurship, and they wanted to do something in real estate. And I said, you know what? I think, and the idea was we come there and they present. Blah. I said that's bullshit. What we're going to do? So I asked 10 of my colleagues, each one to come up with an idea, with a problem that he has, that he needs a solution to from the commercial scene, and go to them and pitch the problem. And then, a group of students would say, okay, we want to work on something for that problem. And then the guy was the mentor, and that was very interesting. I mean, out of the 10 ideas, there was only one good one, but at least it was interesting because it was sort of like a reverse pitch. My colleagues had to pitch the problem and then find a student to work on the problem.
So did they find students to work on it?
Everybody got some. I mean, at the end, it was, it was 30 students, 10 ideas. So everybody had to take one idea. So there was, every idea was being worked on. But, my colleagues, they were pretty excited having to pitch to students the problem that they have. So it was funny. But I think that was just an idea, and, it wasn't now the greatest in the world. But I think the idea of that, the reverse pitch, so I have a problem, that is, I think that should be done more, because on the commercial scene, it's so, but how should young people know about the real problems of the industry, right?
Yeah, that's the thing we did at Reboot. So Bianca knows it, because that was our challenge, well, to kind of reorganize the kind of old-fashioned German Council of Shopping Centers. First step was to change it into shopping places, because we are not dealing with only shopping centers at the moment. And yes, our completely new format, led by our lovely Bianca here. So that's what we try to do there. So we started the whole meeting, for example, on a yoga mat, not sitting on a chair. So this was the first change. And then we had different working groups where we are facing all these issues, like Markus also mentioned. So there were different parties dealing with different issues, and trying to find answers on that. So yes, so we will do that again next year, and hopefully I was very lucky that we did it this year in January, so corona free.
Yes.
And then back on the yoga mat. So guys, it's almost 7 o'clock, and
Bianca and Markus were really active actually in the chat. So they were answering kind of all of the questions, but which I find really interesting is the tokenization for the real estate industry. So it could be really interesting for the future. And then we have Pedro here in the participants, and he says that he also takes care of 4 kids. So, and he takes care of them on a daily basis. Right. Okay.
So let's have a look at the questions. I mean, just in case that Markus and Christine have not yet answered all of them in the chat, I actually wrote it's like multitasking. I can so not do this.
Even it's a man, Markus, he was multitasking.
Yeah, perfect. That's because he has 4 kids, and sometimes he gets to take care of them. And
so but I would ask here, what are your top 3 real estate trends for 2020, Markus?
Well, I think it all comes, what the crisis showed, what's common to every crisis is at the end, it comes down to liquidity. That's the only thing that counts. There's no liquidity, and that's the problem. So cash is king. So I think, the learning is even more, and the people that have forgotten from the last crisis and the crisis before, is get your financing right. Don't bet on the future. Don't do anything. Get it right. Don't leverage too much. Don't think about when you're going to raise capital. You have to get your financing right. It has to be solid, and it has to be committed, and it has to be, because if somebody has a problem now, it's not because they're not getting rent. It's not because anything. It's only because of cash. Cash is king. That's the only thing that counts right now. The liquidity is frozen. So that's the first learning. And I think a lot of people have forgotten about that in the last couple of years. Then I think the other thing is look at the underlying business plan. You have to understand the operators, whether it's a hotel, whether it's a retail business, you have to understand, don't believe the face value that they tell you they're going to pay rent and they put down 3 months deposit. That doesn't help you anything, right? You have to understand whether the underlying business model works. I think the third trend is, as I said, I think real estate owners will have to become part-time, I don't find the right word, entrepreneurs or whatever, part-time owners of their tenants. At least that's, the retail business, that's going to be it. You are going to be the turnover king in retail. It's my prognosis. So you have to get ready to find new ways to finance when your rent is not safe anymore, but it's more based on how the tenant is performing.
How about Christina?
Yeah, I think I only like to add, I totally agree to you, Markus. I think the what's it called, the reinvention of retail continues. As I just said already, customers expect a unique experience, both in store and online. I think secondly, purpose has become kind of the new digital, what means authentic purpose is now as important as digital. So why do I go shopping? What do I need really, and everything around that issue. And I think still everlasting is sustainability, of course, still the question of the day in every asset class at the moment, I think. So, yeah.
Okay. So I'm just having a look on the questions. There was one question pretty early to you, Markus, and I'm not sure if you have already answered it in the chat, but it was from Katrin, and it was about asking you for a prognosis on the hotel and meeting industry.
Oh, you already answered that.
Yeah, I've answered that.
You answered that? So sorry.
No, I think the hotel industry will have a tough year. Just generally, I think people will be cautious in traveling, etc. And I think the business travel is going to pick up sooner than the tourist travel. I think the tourist thing is people are going to be. I'm not sure about that. So yeah, I think the business travel is that's going to pick up, because what I realized the last 4 weeks is getting new business done virtual is very difficult. You have to have a personal meeting at some point. You have to see an asset, you have to meet a person, you have to exchange an idea. You get a lot of done virtual, but it's more, you know, working in a process that needs to be done. You already know the person, you know what you're doing. But getting new business done, meeting somebody new is very hard on the virtual. So that needs to come back to life, and it's not, yeah.
I picked up one question from Christine Chiampa. She works for the Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors. I know her. Hi, Christine. Don't know where you are. But Christina has a question for Bianca, and it's about the diversity in the Silicon Valley, or rather the lack of diversity in the Silicon Valley. Anything you can say about that lack of diversity in that innovation hub?
It's like a normal culture, I think. So it started 15 years ago when it was innovative. Then the studies show, oh, it's a super diverse place. Right now, I would completely agree. It's the opposite of an innovation, which is also why we didn't really see much innovation coming from there. But it's not something that I made up, that diversity helps innovation. So I think we have a chance to put innovation in here. But right now, definitely, it's not very diverse anymore. True.
Right. I think the time is up, so we should be closing the event for tonight. Thank you so much for our great panelists being here tonight, and also all the attendees who were listening. If you have any additional question, just shoot us an email. There's going to be a closing slide popping up. You can find there all the links, our contacts, and then just
oh yeah, and make sure in that closing slide you will see contact details to Women Who Inspire Rhein Main and to Frauen in Führung. We're both present in social media, so make sure, if you're interested, to follow us. And as Aneta says, if you have any questions, feel free to drop us an email. We look forward to hearing from you, and again, thanks to all of our panelists and to you for attending. Have a good night, and we're taking home some good learnings tonight from this. Thank you so much.
Take care, guys.